Welcome to Midweek Chat with Garage Geek. So in an effort to make my videos a bit shorter, less than 30 minutes, I decided that maybe I need to make more than one per week if I have things to talk about. And I realized today that since my last video, I've already watched about 5 or 6 movies. And I thought, well, let me just go ahead and talk about the movies and the one book that I finished so that on Friday, I'll be able to make my video shorter. So I want to talk about this movie, Ghosted. Now, I did already review this, but in my review, I forgot to mention that even though this is a romantic comedy, and I'm not into romantic comedies, I think that, you will like this movie if you're into romantic comedies. I did mention that I liked the kind of special effects and cinematography in the movie. And one thing that I forgot to mention, though, was there were so many cameos from the Marvel movies and others that it's a delight whenever you see those people who he's interacted with in the Marvel movies or in other movies, and then showing them, them showing up sometimes for like 30 seconds, just really small cameos. So that was a joy in this movie. If you're a fan of the Marvel movies, you might want to watch it just for that. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is, I also forgot to mention this. So again, this really, really pisses me off. So this is someone on WhatsApp who bought the Taylor Swift record on Record Store Day, and look what they are selling it for. $120, right? I believe it costs $30. So this is just what I hate about Record Store Day, right? So some people don't have the opportunity to go and buy it, and then other people, they do, and then they gouge you for that. It's just awful. $120 selling that. And again, when I saw that, I was just kind of sickened by that. I hate that. If you're one of the people who do that, sorry, I just don't like that. If that's the way you make your living, okay, but I don't appreciate that myself. Okay, this week I started this book. It's called Nights of Plague by Orhan Pamuk. Now, he won the Nobel Prize in Literature, I think in 2006, something like that. I think I read at least one book by him. This is maybe the third one. It is 29 hours, so it is an epic book. But so I don't know when I'm going to get finished with this one. But whenever I see this cover, I think of the planet Jupiter. It's just like, and this is space right here, and like just the colors of it. It just reminds me of the planet Jupiter. That's that's what I see in that picture. All right, so I finished season 3 of Picard. And it's probably no surprise to anyone at this point. They brought together the cast of the Next Generation, as you can see from that. And I'm going to tell you that this had one of the most satisfying endings. I really, really appreciated the ending of the series. They did leave it open for it to go on into new directions, but possibly, without Picard. I don't know what it would be called, but, because the show is called Star Trek Picard. But what I can say is, I've been with these characters, since my teen years. And, kind of grown up and grown older with these characters, right? I've watched it in reruns. I've watched the season. I watched the seasons later, right? And so to have such a satisfying ending with these characters, it was really, really well done. So I really appreciated how they ended this season of Star Trek Picard. Okay, a movie that we watched was called Death's Roulette. Now, this movie is actually in Spanish. I don't know if it was from Spain or not, to be honest with you. There were definitely some Spanish, how do I say, Castilian speaking, like, the Spanish of Spain, you could tell by their accents. So this is one of those movies where a bunch of people wake up and they're in this mansion and they have to make decisions, to like who's going to live and who's going to die. The rules are slightly different in this one. Everyone has to agree and no one can volunteer. And so they all have to like fight with each other and come up with a solution of who is going to be the next to die and why, and they have to agree. The person who ultimately is going to die has to agree that he or she will be the next to die. That was an interesting twist to this movie. Now, I'm not going to say that this is a great movie. If you're a fan of this genre, you might like it. It had a couple of the stereotypical tropes of this genre. Some things that you knew would happen did. So I'm going to say I enjoyed it for the genre. It's not an absolute must. This movie, on the other hand, was really good. Now, I have a funny story to tell about this movie, which I will. But so my husband and I watched it, and it was pretty creepy. It also has one of the, the tropes that is going on in horror movies where it's basically a curse that is passed on. And so the people, it's like The Ring, right? Where there's a curse passed on, and also the movie It Follows. So there's this curse passed on, and the people in the movie have a certain amount of time to overcome the curse. And I really, really enjoyed this movie. Now, the funny thing was that we watched this, I think, 2 or 3 nights ago, and my husband had a scary dream last night, and he said, "Oh my gosh, you were outside with the dogs and you're having fun with them, and then I went into the kitchen and there you were." And I was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing here?" And then I turned around and you were playing with the dogs, and I turned back in the kitchen and you had that giant smile on your face. And I'm like, why am I always the monster in your dreams? It's like I'm always the monster. I don't get it. Or maybe I do. That's some kind of Freudian stuff going on there. All right. So then my husband picked this movie. So this is a new Apple TV movie. And when he picked it, I didn't have, high expectations for it. I was like, oh, another rom-com movie, whatever. It's got Justin Timberlake. Wow, was I wrong. This movie floored me. It was so good. It was such a good movie. Highly recommended. Now, Apple TV, they have been putting out consistently good to great movies. For example, they did do Ghosted, right? But overall, like the movie that they put out last year, it won the Best Picture of the year. And I believe that this movie it's not as good as that one, but wow, is it good. And I highly recommend it. If you can. This movie surprised me because I didn't know anything about it. My husband wanted to watch it, so it was his turn. We watched it, and I was very pleasantly surprised. Such a good movie. Highly recommend it. Now, the next movie that I'm going to talk about is Soft and Quiet. And I'm actually going to spoil some of this. Why? Because I don't think many people are likely to see it. And if you actually do any kind of research about it online, it will give it away right away. So I want to talk about the marketing. So it's a Blumhouse presents. So Blumhouse, you usually think automatically of horror. And the way it's branded, I mean, it looks like it's going to be this horror movie. I mean, look at this. Soft and Quiet. Look at that. I mean, that definitely looks like some kind of body horror movie. It's nothing like that at all. So it's definitely mismarketed. I didn't know what this was about. I went on some recommendations online. I made a list, so just started watching it. I am going to spoil it a little bit. Right at the beginning of the movie, you have this woman, and even this picture is kind of misleading. She looks like a nun there, right? And that background looks medieval. It's nothing like that. This lady is a school teacher, and she's having these weird interactions with the people around her. There's a janitor or a woman at her school, and she gets one of her kindergarten kids to go up and and, you know, tell the woman that she's doing something wrong. It happens off camera. And you're thinking, why would she make the kid do that? And then, you know, it becomes important, like the janitor is not the same race. So we don't understand that at the beginning. So this movie is all about race and race hatred. It's super low budget. And I was actually quite shocked. Like, I didn't kind of get what was going on. And then about 5 minutes into the movie, they're all having, there's all these women and they meet in this church. And this woman unwraps a pie and you can't tell, but she puts it on the table and pulls out the wrapping, and I just got like a shock. I don't know why. This like really shocked me. There was a Nazi symbol in the pie and you can't see it anymore. But that was super important in the movie because then it just clicks, like why they're meeting, why this woman is behaving the way she does. And that pie was just such a strong reveal that I was kind of like, whoa. Now, the rest of the movie is not as good. These women just act insanely stupid. They commit a crime that it just, even for racist people, it just seems like I hate to say, like, are racists naturally just stupid too? Because the crime that they go out and commit, it's like, it seems like if they were that stupid, they would have committed this crime way earlier in their lives. Like, I don't know how they got to the age that they are, that they didn't do it. Or maybe it's supposed to be like a breaking point for them. They're all together. There's this mix. And then there's one woman there who had actually been in prison and she's kind of egging them on and everything. And even though it sounds intriguing, this happens in real time because it's low budget. So, like, for example, 2 times they get into a car and a truck, and like we're following them on the whole trip to where they're going and whatnot. I can't highly recommend this movie because it's super low budget, but it was intriguing. It's very talky. It's a talky movie, but then it becomes violent. There's violence. There's rape. There's definitely a race, swearing, excuse me, all that kind of stuff. But it's just low budget enough that I can't highly recommend it. But if you're interested, I would watch this. I think it's got some important things to say about race. And I like how the director and the authors, they put these characters together, and it's very unflinching. It's like a look at the way racist people talk and think. I think it scores points for that. All right. So wait, did I might have talked about all my movies. Did I already? Let me see. Wow, I got through that quick in only 13 minutes. I kind of flew. So I'm going to talk about the book that I just finished reading. And I've mentioned this already twice because I was able to get this back from the library and then I finished it. So it's called House of Suns by Alistair Reynolds. Now, I mentioned that I read another one of his books and it was called what was it called? Revelation Space, and it was highly recommended, and it's actually the first of like 6 or 8 books in a series, and I didn't like it. It wasn't that I hated it. It was just, it seemed convoluted and too confusing for a reason. Maybe it was because it's building up to what's going to happen in other books. It just seemed to be unnecessarily convoluted and confusing and overlong, and I just wasn't getting into it. It wasn't bad by any means, but it just seemed confusing to me. And that one was written in 2000. And then again, there were a lot of sequels. And this book was written in 2008. And I immediately loved it from the beginning. It was interesting. It was strange. Now, there were a couple of tropes in the book. For example, one of them was a virtual reality game within the larger scope that we follow characters through. That's becoming overused in a lot of science fiction books, but it's not a major part of the book. I do think it's important for many reasons to what happens in the book, but this book spans like huge amounts of time. it involves like a line of people and how they're able to clone themselves and become they're actually called lines, and they basically become masters of the universe. Their law, what they say is the law. Their whole job is to keep planets and emerging civilizations in line. They go throughout the galaxy for hundreds of thousands of years, and all they do is, I think every 200,000 years, or it's called a circuit. Every circuit, they must get together and share all their experiences with each other. And we find out, I don't want to spoil too much, but we find out that everybody in that line, they're all clones. So basically, they're developing apart over time. They're becoming different over time. But they come back to share all of those memories so that they can keep everything going and keep the knowledge. Now, along the way, they're meeting different races and different types of beings. And this book goes in very interesting places. Now, I like time travel a lot. And this isn't time travel. It's more time dilation, right? They're not going back to the past. It's always moving forward. But it's very interesting. And I'm telling you, I was really hooked. Now, I'm definitely going to read, I think, a couple more of his standalone novels. And I am going to tackle that Revelation space novel again, right? Because I want to see where that goes, especially since so many people recommend it. And now that I'm used to this author's style, I will probably get into it more. But like I said, I'm going to try a couple more of the standalone novels before I jump into that series of novels. And I think that is all that I have to talk to you today. And wow, I did that in under 20 minutes. I really went fast. I hope I didn't forget anything, leave anything out. I'm going to say that I have been expanding my YouTube channel with more and more comic book YouTubers, and I'm so happy. I love the vinyl community, but I also like having the comic community. I hope to expand in another section, further down the line. Talk more about that maybe in another video. But I like how they're starting to come together and mesh. I want the vinyl and the comic community in some ways to interact. I like when I do videos and I share, like if it's a vinyl challenge, I try to include literature and some kind of comic books just to broaden it. And like I did with my Bob Dylan video, right? So we were supposed to show 3 Bob Dylan covers, and then I went ahead and showed how Bob Dylan has influenced not only literature, I only picked Stephen King, so that was superficial, but also how Bob Dylan has influenced the comic book artists and writers. So I like doing those kind of things. Now, I've met a few comic book people, and they are doing some interesting things with their comics, and I hope to try to bring them in and get them to maybe show some music and kind of have a crossover. It is what it is. I just like doing different things, trying to bring different genres together, because that's just the way I am in my life. I love music. I love comics. I like literature. I love movies. Because I'm just eclectic. I'm all over the place. But again, if you have any thoughts, any ideas, any questions, please, I love answering the comments. And I will see you on Friday for my regular Friday night chat.